Howdy folks, Jamboree here, and welcome to another episode of The Church of Tim Curry. Joining me is my co-host Viva Becker.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about the cult TV miniseries It. It is set in the town of Derry in Maine, focusing on a group of kids called Bill, Ben, Beverly, Richie, Eddie, Mike, and Stanley, who are all being bullied by Henry Bowers and his gang of thugs. The children band together, forming a team called the Losers Club. Soon they discover the legend of a clown called Pennywise, a menacing being who apparently eats children, and one such victim was Bill's little brother Georgie. Years later, the gang are reunited, having forgotten their childhood trauma of Pennywise, and must return to the well where he lurks. So Viva, what were your initial thoughts on this film? Well, this series, film... What is this? How would you describe this?
Okay, so we should talk about it in parts. Part 1 and Part 2.
Yeah.
Because it is 2 movies. Do you know where the break between Part 1 and Part 2 is?
I watched it on DVD, and it was one of those, double-sided discs. So then when the first part ended, it just abruptly ended, and then I turned it over and it carried straight on. Very awkward.
Okay, so it didn't really tell you where the end of the first movie was?
No.
Okay, I just assumed that it was the part where Stanley dies.
That's where it ended on my DVD, yeah. The first part,
Okay, I'm assuming that's the end of the first movie. I'm sure people will correct me if I'm wrong about it.
I'm sure, yeah.
But that seemed kind of like where the end was, because at that point we'd met everybody, and there was a nice, scary bit to end the movie, so that's kind of where it felt like the ending was. And then after that, we started meeting everybody again as adults when they were coming back.
Yeah. Okay, so initial thoughts on part one.
Okay, so I really liked Part 1. I actually really liked the whole movie. I watched it a couple times with a couple different people, and people really didn't seem to like it that much, but I really liked it, so yeah, no, the first part I thought was really good. The second part was disappointing, but it could have been worse, I guess.
Oh yeah.
You kind of had to watch it to finish Part 1, but man, it's disappointing. But Part 1 I think is really good, and I know it's kind of slow for some people, and it's really a lot of just people standing around and making weird faces, but there's something about it that I really liked. I thought the kids were really good. I thought they stuck really well to their rules in Part 1, which is something I liked, whereas Part 2, I was like, Jesus Christ. They took the rules, they threw them right out the window in Part 2. But yeah, no, I don't have a lot to say about Part 1 that I didn't like.
Yeah, personally, I really did enjoy Part 1, and it's the wholesomeness of the Losers Club that really holds the first part together, I think. It's the charm of their friendship and the almost nostalgic atmosphere of seeing them hanging together, and it's almost reminiscent of like when I spent time with my friends down in like Forest and stuff like that. And again, there's something really sweetly innocent about all these kids, and you do feel sorry for what they're going through, and when they're empowered, you're cheering them on too.
Yeah, that's something that I really like about a lot of the Stephen King movies that I've seen, is that the depiction of childhood is very nostalgic and beautiful.
Yeah.
Even though they're being beaten up by these other kids and they're being stalked by this clown, there's just, when they're hanging out together, there's something that's very nice about it.
It's a great contrast to all the horror happening around them. Because if they were constantly miserable, then it would be just incessant dread all the way through, and I feel as if that you need that comfort in horror sometimes, so that when the scares happen, it's more startling and more alarming, and it breaks that comfort zone. You're kind of like, this doesn't feel right. I want to go back to seeing these kids being happy.
But the way they did it was really nice too. The way they transitioned from the scary stuff to the nice stuff was very smooth. Not like part 2 where the transitions were pretty jarring, between them relaxing and then the scary stuff happening. Like in the first one, it's nice, and then you start to kind of get the feeling that something's wrong, and then you're like, oh, something scary is going to happen, and then it kind of creeps up, and then it gets scary. It doesn't just...
Takes its time, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't just, like, cut right to the scary stuff. Which I think, for me, it's kind of more creepy that way. When they were getting really jarring with it, it was just too much, and it kind of started being funny and not scary.
But we'll get to part 2 though.
I mean, not to say that the stuff that I found the stuff in part 1 like really terrifying, scary, because some of the effects are a little fakey, but it still had an atmosphere of kind of creepy. Yes, yeah,
for me, it wasn't. Like I say, it wasn't immensely scary, but I think more than anything is the concept of Pennywise, and the film does a good job building that legend up, especially with the entrance to the well and the location of it. It looks like something you would find in a forest, a local forest near to you. And there's something both surreal and familiar about that entrance, and the fact the camera doesn't go too close to it until later on adds to the eeriness as well.
Surreal but familiar is a really good description of a lot of the stuff that happens.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's like an uncanny valley area with a lot of the stuff that happens in it.
Okay, so you mentioned the Losers Club, and that is one of the main things that I took exception with. In part 1, and I really don't like this about a lot of movies, but come on, the Losers Club, these guys have a group of friends that's 7 people. If you have a group of friends that you hang out with all the time who care about you and would be willing to go into the haunted sewers with you, you're not a loser, okay?
I don't think that's the point though. It's more along the lines of owning the abuse that the bullies are giving them. Is kind of like taking hold of that name they've given them and using it to empower themselves in a way. It's like, you don't affect us. If you're calling us losers, fine, we're losers and we'll own that. And I think that's to me, that's what makes the club so endearing.
I was just distracted by the fact that they are very clearly not losers.
I guess, but they're also called the Lucky Seven, so... It's alternative. If you don't like the Losers Club, there's another name for them.
I mean, okay, but at the same time, they're not losers, but are they particularly lucky? Because they're also, like, their childhood is very abusive for most of these people.
True, but they're... I guess it's just supposed to be ironic, just like the Losers Club.
I mean, just don't name it. Just say this is my good group of friends, and we hang out together.
No, I'm cool. I'm cool with the Losers Club. I like that because again, it's a way of owning the repression of the bullies.
Well, you can never speak to me again. Well, there's a couple things that I did put down that I didn't like too much. First of all, the movie seemed really confused as to whether or not Pennywise was leaving bodies.
Is this
because
part 1, yeah?
This is part 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is one of the things that one of the rules that they were kind of going back and forth on in part 1 was sometimes they would say there's no bodies, and sometimes there would be obviously bodies. Like at the very beginning scene with the little girl, you see a body being hauled away. And when they're talking about Bill's little brother. They say that they found his body with the arms ripped off, so... I mean, decide whether he leaves bodies or not, movie. Also, I really didn't like the relationship between Bill and his freaking wife, because, well, in the first part, you're supposed to feel very connected to this relationship, but they never show them being nice to each other.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
There's nothing that really shows that they care about each other except for they say it, but all the time that they're on screen together, they're fighting with each other. And also just his wife in general, I hated her accent. She was she supposed to be British or like European, Irish? I don't know, but she was not sticking to one accent and it was driving me crazy.
What is it? Who was on the phone?
Nobody. Wrong number.
Bill?
I have to go back to work.
Bill?
So here I have put down Bill's British wife with very heavy quotes around it because I can't tell. Also, let's see. Another character that I didn't like a lot was Henry Bowers. And I know everybody complains about the Stephen King bullies because the group in the Losers Club, he really develops them. They seem more like real characters. And then when you have somebody like Henry Bowers right next to them, he's so flat and he's so one note that I can hardly believe him there. He's just so dedicated to bullying. He's got such an extensive bullying kit. Every other scene, he's pulling one of the Losers Club people away, and he whips out this knife. He whips out these firecrackers. Where does he get them? I don't know. He's just a bully, so he has them on his person at all times. Just having him be so flat like that, I just couldn't believe that was his whole character. So I found myself trying to make up stuff that would exonerate him, that would give him a reason as to why he was so evil. But you're not supposed to do that because of the way the movie treats him.
Yeah.
You're supposed to think, oh, he's just evil.
Yeah.
But I just can't because his character is so flat. I was like, there has to be a reason. He said his dad beats him. Maybe that's something. I don't know.
It kind of brushes that off, yeah.
Anything.
My biggest problem with him is that I did not find him intimidating whatsoever, and I think that's mainly because of the costume and hair design. They look like Danny Zuko and the T-Birds from Grease. I did not find them scary at all. They were supposed to be menacing bullies, but I was like, I just feel like they're going to start singing Grease Lightning any second. They're not.
Yeah.
They don't. The great thing about the film is its ability to take you back to your childhood, but these do not remind me of my own childhood bullies.
Well, I mean, if I was placing them in my childhood, they would be the ones who were getting beaten up because they would be showing up in those ridiculous outfits.
Yeah, they were terrible costume designs, and they were just too cartoony as well. Way too cartoony.
And the fact that he just whips out firecrackers.
Yeah, it wasn't like a cherry bomb or something, which is like the least intimidating firecracker you can think of. Most important question though is Tim Curry as Pennywise and Pennywise the character in general. What do you think?
Beep, beep, Richie. Come back anytime. I'll show you how to slow down.
I thought he was very fun. I wondered why he wasn't just British, because he's supposed to be like this ageless demon. Who's to say he's not British, huh? He had to hide his British accent. I don't know why. You could hear it trying to creep in.
Yeah.
A lot. I could hear it trying to creep in. And I was like, why don't you just make him British? Probably because it would make freaking Audra's British accent sound even worse.
I've no idea.
But I thought he was very fun. I wasn't scared of him.
Oh no!
But he was very fun to watch.
No, I was never afraid at any point. Even when they tried to make him creepy. I was like, Tim, you're so funny.
Did they try to make him creepy? I never saw a part where they were really...
in some scenes when it gets a bit.
I mean, they put the teeth on him,
yeah,
but he just looked like he was having so much fun. It couldn't.
Yeah,
be
exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like there are little moments where they're clearly trying to make him at least a little bit intimidating, and it completely fails because he's so damn entertaining. I just smiled the whole. I either smiled or I laughed.
When he was biting off Georgie's arm, I was just like, oh, well, now I want to see a version of Jaws where Tim Curry plays the shark.
yes, now. Do it. Yeah, I do feel as if that he's in the film too much, which is a double-edged sword because he's so fun. And the best thing about the entire mini-series, but if the filmmakers want him to be this kind of like horror figure, the best way to do that is to not show them too much, so then it doesn't feel like overkill. And it does because there's so many scenes where if he's not on screen, he's the voice of someone, he's possessing someone, so he's always there to the point where it's like I'm not afraid of him. We're both not afraid of him, and I think one of the reasons why is because he's in the film so much, and they really repeat and overdo the whole possessing thing. It's way too overdone.
I'm just not sure how they were trying to portray his character, because as the clown Pennywise, he is pretty charming with the kids, and so the idea could be that he's so charming that he lures these kids away and then he kills them. But at the same time, he keeps on breaking the character really quickly, or he shows up as a fountain of blood first, so he's not trying to be charming. So I was kind of confused as to what
it was weird, yeah.
What his plan was here.
It's like we're not too sure if he's supposed to be comic relief or a supernatural force half the time. It's very hard to make the conclusion.
I really liked the bit with the spider, where Beverly sees her blood sink and then she freaks out, and then her dad comes in. But instead of being like the other kids where she really sticks to her story, she makes up the thing about the spider. I think that really well illustrated her kind of home situation, that she could just think of that really quickly.
Yeah, it builds a character as well, because later on she becomes like the warrior of the team as well. So it shows that she has good instinct. She has very good survival instinct.
And it's pretty funny that she says it's a spider, and at the end it turns out to actually be a spider.
Have you seen the clip of Tim Curry talking about how stupid he thinks that it's a spider at the end?
I mean, no, but like, we'll get to the end when we talk about part 2, okay? We'll get to how I feel about the spider.
Okay.
They seem to be having a hard time managing Tim Curry's clown makeup, because I noticed in some shots it would go back and forth, and his his eyeshadow, those little triangle eyeshadow things that he had, would go back and forth in terms of how smudgy they were. It's a little thing, but I did notice it. And finally, the freaking reaction to dead Stanley. I mean, it's supposed to be scary, but she just goes in and she's just like, ow! And
that scenery
scenery
is an all-you-can-eat buffet to that woman in that moment.
I could not handle that. I was just the whole way they handled Stanley. I mean, from the beginning, I knew he was gonna die because they never developed him that much.
No, they didn't.
They never talked to him. And when we were 2/3 through the movie, and they still hadn't addressed him, I was like, okay, that kid is dead. He's dead. Like, the other kids show up in the background and they kind of talk about him, but he shows up in the background. They never say anything about him, so I knew he was dead. And then he's like, oh, let's start a family, and I'm like, dead. Dead. And then he's like, I'm gonna take a bath, and I'm like, dead. And then I'm like, okay, his wife is going up to see him. How scary are they gonna make it? and then it just zooms in on her face, and she's like, "Oh!" And I'm like, I'm done.
All you had to do was show the corpse and it end episode. But no, they had to
Yes.
milk her pruny face for like 5 minutes. Right, okay, are you ready to talk about part 2? The best part.
Yes. It wins the award for most disappointing second part.
So, to me, it's like watching The Goonies become a soap opera suddenly. It's the transition.
I have half a page of notes for part 1, mostly positive. I have 5 pages of notes for part 2.
What?
Yes. There were a lot of inconsistencies I noticed. They took their beautiful lore, they took their beautiful characters, and they threw them right out the window.
Yep. And
They took Tim Curry. They threw him right out the window. They made him a very fake-looking spider.
for me, it's... Okay, so my thing with part 2 is that I like the scenes where it's just them sitting around talking about memories, because then that harks back to the charm of the first part. I like those little moments. That's where part 2 is at its strongest to me. Whenever part 2 wants to be serious, scary, or dramatic, it's kind of painful, because the acting... the acting is just...
I mean, did it ever want to be scary? They have a part where Stanley's head shows up in the mini fridge.
Yeah, it's
and I'm like, is this supposed to be
I know,
scary?
I can't
because they
tell.
have his head doing stand-up.
Yeah, it's so
like,
it's a
why?
very tonally confused part. It really is. It really loses me. And again, so it's hard to tell when it's trying to be comical or not. And there are moments that are clearly trying to be at least a little creepy, a little unsettling. And because the acting's so over the top, the atmosphere is killed. I would say there's no atmosphere at all in part 2. It kills the atmosphere because everything is so hammy and overdone, and again, you can't tell what tone or mood they're going for half the time.
I mean, the tonal mood is, what? Why are you doing this? Why did you add that?
And that's just your mood.
It's just, they add so many things, and none of them make sense. Can I just really quickly talk about the 2 things that I liked from part 2?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. First of all, I really loved best transition of the whole movie. The transition between the balloon part in the library that's supposed to be scary, and then smash cut to Bill and Michael, I think. Yeah, Bill and Michael with his bike, and then they just suddenly start playing this musical montage of them playing around on this bike. The transition was just so fast. I just laughed at it. It was too fast. There was no transition between the scary stuff, like you're supposed to be scared of these balloons, and then suddenly this happy music with these 2 grown men playing on this bike.
It is a horrible transition, but I love that scene. Because it's really cleverly done, showing the like an almost not a reenactment, like I don't know how to describe it. Like, I just liked that it was them rekindling their friendship, and that little moment, just a little bike ride together, and showing the child actors doing the same. I thought that was really sweet. Obviously, terribly edited into the film, but like the way they pull it off, I thought was quite nice.
The terrible editing is my favorite part. That's the part that makes it so funny.
But yeah,
Comedy gold right there.
I liked that little scene. Again, it's because
I don't think they even fade in the music. I think they just start the music full volume.
Yeah, but it goes back to how I think that the part 2 is at its best when it's about the nostalgia, when it's about these adults remembering the good parts of their summer, while also having that underlying connection because they survived something horrible together. I feel like that's where it's at its best, when it goes back to being about trying to defeat Pennywise finally. That's where I'm kind of like, okay. I feel like I'm watching an episode of EastEnders. Right, okay.
And then the second thing that I really liked was just at the end when they were showing kind of what happened with all of the people. I really liked that when they cut to Bev and that other kid that she ends up with, the fat kid. She's driving the car and Ben is just kind of snuggling up with her. I think that's cute. And it also shows that she's in a more equal relationship now because she's driving to her own.
Yeah, that's a good point. So. Yeah.
I thought that was a cute, very fast shorthand. One of the weird things that they introduce, the asthma plot. Does Ed actually have asthma or not? Because they seem to be going back and forth as to whether or not he actually has asthma. And also, why add it? I don't know. I don't understand.
I think it's so that they can have the inhaler be the weapon of defeat at the end. I think that's the only reason they want to bring the inhaler back, is so that they can carry on that. I don't know what to call it, maybe a motif.
But the inhaler doesn't work the second time.
Yeah, but I think that's the only
did
reason.
Did he actually have asthma when he was a kid, so that it really worked, and then he didn't when he got older? I don't understand. They didn't explain it, and I was just confused. And you just wind up wondering whether or not he actually has asthma.
It's poor fat foreshadowing more than anything, really.
The part where Bev first comes back and then she has this whole scene with old lady Pennywise. What was actually happening at that point? Because was she just standing in the middle of the street? Because they show her going into her old house, but then when they cut back, it's completely boarded up. Like the door is locked, there's big boards over it, so there's no way she could have gone in there. And we've never seen Pennywise be powerful enough that he can create, like, whole houses, and he makes you think you're walking into a house and actually sitting in a chair.
He's not a reality bender, no way, no.
Yeah, so, if he can do that, it seems like he could very easily get people. They just made him way too strong in that part. Also, I have it put down, old lady Pennywise given away by his totally normal British teeth. So... Just another movie with Tim Curry with his totally normal British teeth. Okay, they have Pennywise. He's working with Bowers for some reason. Why? What makes him so obsessed with these people that are not even kids anymore? He can't do anything. He can't, like, eat them because he said he was the devourer of children. And he is so dedicated to going after this special group of friends that he is hooking up with he's like working with this old crazy Bowers. Why?
I can't.
And why does he need him?
I know he said something about a shell. Like he needs a body or something. I can't remember. Something about.
Yeah, well, he said that he needs Bowers because he can actually hurt them.
Right. Yeah.
Whether or not they believe in him. But that's obviously not true, because in the end of that scene, Pennywise comes out and he kills the insane asylum guard, who doesn't know who Pennywise is, definitely doesn't believe in him because he's an adult, and he shouldn't be able to even see him. So that thing that he just said about not being able to hurt people who don't believe in him, obviously not true. So what the heck? I don't know. I don't know why they had to bring Henry Bowers back into it, honestly. And also the way that they treat him, where he goes crazy and then he stabs one of them and then he immediately dies.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't really add anything to the story.
No,
anyway.
It doesn't. No.
And it just. The only thing it really communicates is that you as the audience are not supposed to feel bad for him, and that he is, yes, just a straight, like, flat bully. There's nothing to him. There's no reason why you should feel sorry for him or anything.
To be fair, though, him stabbing Mike means that Mike is out of the team for the rest of the film, so there's at least that contribution, I guess.
I mean, why does Mike not be in the team? He's the one who gets the team back together.
Yeah.
He's the one who has to, they say, suffer, stay in their hometown. He has to be the lighthouse, and he doesn't even get to go fight the spider.
No.
That's not fair.
That did bug me. It really bugged me that he was pushed out of the team. Yeah. He was like the heart. He was like the heart of the team almost. And you had Bill as the leader as well, and then you had Beverly as the warrior. I don't know about the others' roles, but still.
Well, there's the wimpy guy that dies, and then there's the fat guy.
They've got John
That's
Ritter.
their role
They've
on
got
the
John
team.
Ritter on the team. Yay!
Also, how weird is it that 30 years later, Henry Bowers is in this insane asylum, and he's still obsessed with getting back at these people?
Yeah. That's how
Like,
that's
he's
how
just
flat
sitting
he
there.
is.
Has he been spending the last 30 years muttering about revenge? Because that's kind of weird.
Yeah. I mean, like, more than anything, he should have a grudge against Pennywise for turning his hair white and scaring him.
Ruining his life.
Yeah, it's-
and killing his friends.
Yeah.
His two friends. He kills his two
It's
friends.
strange that his grudge is stronger to these kids and that he's that easily manipulated by Pennywise. Who has a dog head in that scene. Why? Do you know why?
Because the guard guy right before that is like, oh, you're dog meat, I'm gonna kill you, to Bowers, and then Pennywise shows up. He's like, dog meat, huh? I'm a dog now.
Right. Okay.
I think. Just the fact that the guard could see him and then be killed by Pennywise just breaks all the rules in the first movie. Part of the scary atmosphere was the kids are seeing this, but then their parents come in, the people who are supposed to be protecting them from it, and they're just acting like there's nothing there, and that's what makes it so scary for those kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Definitely.
And then they take it, they throw it right out the window. I can kind of buy that the kids can still see him when they're adults, but all the other adults, I mean, come on.
Yeah, at least with the Losers Club, you can believe that they've had that trauma stuck to them all
enough
their
that
lives.
they still believe in him.
Yeah. Obviously, it's very repressed, and they need Mike's help to bring it back, but still, it's there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get the whole thing. Another thing they introduced was the brain fog, where it's like you don't remember it at all until you get back. I don't think they should have added that. I mean, if there was something that was that scary and you went down into the sewer with your friends, they weren't really that young. I'm pretty sure they probably would have remembered it.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know? I don't
totally,
think they should have had that. And then at the end, after they kill the spider, they just completely forget about it. I don't know why that happened. They're like, the fog is coming down now again. I can't remember anything. Mike is like, this is my last entry. I got it in right before I forgot everything that happened. I don't know what that's all about. Does Pennywise suddenly have magic memory erasing stuff too? I mean, he's dead. How can he be doing this?
I have no idea.
I didn't get it. That was another thing they added in. I was like, oh, come on. If they completely forgot about him, why can they see him again then, huh?
Yeah. Again, very inconsistent.
They also introduce the idea that this group is somehow special, like destined to be together, destined to fight Pennywise. They bring up that they are all unusually successful, but none of them have children, and somehow that's Pennywise's fault. How? I don't know. I'm confused.
That did really confuse me too. Yeah, I wasn't too sure where they were going with for that part, that aspect.
They never go anywhere with it.
No,
they
no,
just make
that's-
it confusing.
I didn't get it. It did. Yeah, it's weird that they're all very successful, but okay.
And why would they not?
They've left.
children?
Yeah, it was weird.
I mean, it would make sense that at least one of them would have children, and that would help motivate them to want to protect children
that'd make
by
him
going back and killing Pennywise.
That'll make it stronger. Yeah.
They don't have to bring their kid with them. Leave them at home and just have that be their motivation. When they were leaving their hotel to finally go face Pennywise, the funny guy, the loud guy. Yeah, Richie. He's not about it. He doesn't want to do it. He wants to leave. And then he stops, he turns, and he watches a little bit of the news about the girls that have been taken by Pennywise. And I thought that was going to be a character moment. Maybe he decides that he wants to protect kids or something. It never comes back. I'm like, the motivation to protect kids and to protect your hometown, that's pretty strong. But instead, they make it this weird revenge thing. They just make the whole killing of the spider thing about revenge instead of, say, protecting the children and the community, which is what it was about in the first one. And, I mean, revenge is understandable, but it's also less of a heroic motivation than protecting of children, so I don't know why they did that.
And the great thing about that was the sense of camaraderie and community between children. That was what's so great about it. So to take that essence away does remove some charm to the whole getting kids together to take down this threat that adults can't see.
Yeah, they should have, honestly, they should have just changed. They should have just taken the adults out of it, had them when they first went down, succeeded in pulling Pennywise back out of the drain, and they should have just killed him there, and then it would have been a good story. But they ruined it with part 2. Another thing they added the whole feeding element. So he feeds every 30 years, and they can tell because every 30 years something terrible happens. But for some reason they didn't make the thing that happens every 30 years be a disaster where a lot of children die. They made it be fires and stuff. And I don't really understand that because Pennywise in the first one says he's the eater of children. He eats children. So why is every 30 years he doing fires and stuff, making fires that don't necessarily kill children? I don't understand why they had to add that feeding thing. Another thing they added, the dairy disease. When they added that, I was just like, oh, what? So apparently it's not just Pennywise. Everybody in Derry is Pennywise. Okay. And they decide this because one guy didn't step in when Henry Bowers was bullying Bev. Okay. I mean, in part 1, they show adults stepping in and stopping Henry Bowers when he's bullying Michael. So I don't know if everybody in Derry is Pennywise. I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a good point. And like the teacher in the class was like, Harry, stop being a dick. That's it. You're gonna be seeing me after school every day. So it's not like every single person there is like anti-child.
Yeah, I mean, they don't see Pennywise, but they already had a perfectly good explanation for that. But suddenly everybody is. They pretty much just added that to explain why all the police were being really bad about stuff and to explain away the fact that they were just going to leave dead Henry Bowers in a hotel room and not do anything with him. But that just made more questions, and it just made it worse, in my opinion. Just the whole way that they handled police involvement and the fact that somehow Henry Bowers kills the insane asylum guard, and then he makes it all the way back to Derry. He sneaks into the hotel somehow, but he's obviously this crazy guy. He has no money. He's wearing like the crazy guy jumpsuit outfit. He has a knife. They never explain how he makes it in there. He just pops out of the shadows.
No. Yeah, that really puzzled me a lot, was how the hell did he get in that hotel? Just
and then
magic.
when they pull him off Mike, he just stabs himself. I'm like, did they just shoot that badly, or did Pennywise make him stab himself? I don't know. I mean, you could have some pretty bad police, but they're just gonna ignore this dead crazy guy who somehow showed up miles away from where he was supposed to be, and he's just there. He's in the hotel room. He's just dead. And they're just like, okay, whatever. And all of these kids are showing up, and they're just dead. And you're telling me that the police and all the adults are just like, okay, this happens every 30 years. We're okay with it.
I became so disconnected with part 2.
It doesn't make any sense. Also, okay, Audra shows up in Derry because she's not gonna, Bill can't tell her what to do. She's gonna come in, she's gonna help him out. And then she immediately gets kidnapped by Pennywise. But she can see him. How?
Yeah, I didn't get that either.
Bill never explains Pennywise
So
to
many
her.
inconsistencies.
I was just like, okay, so the whole thing about adults not being able to see him and the whole belief thing, they try to talk about it, but they don't follow through on it because all these adults can see and be kidnapped and be killed by Pennywise. So, what the
Yeah.
heck?
My only theory is that Pennywise decided to make himself visible to Audra so he could use Audra as bait for Bill. I don't know.
But if he can just decide to make himself visible, why does he need Henry Bowers then? Because he comes, he's like, Henry, I need you. Why?
I don't know. My favourite part of part 2 was seeing the running time coming closer to 5 minutes left.
My favorite part was all the ridiculous stuff they came up with. No, my favorite part was the scene with the bike. I already told you that. The clumsy editing. It makes the whole thing worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The romance between Ben and Bev, very awkwardly set up.
Yes, very.
The part where he thinks he's making out with Bev and then it turns out to be Pennywise. That was the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. It wasn't. I was like, is this supposed to be scary? Okay.
Kiss me, fat boy. It's not scary, but it's so entertaining. Oh, I loved it.
At that point, I was just imagining crazier and crazier scenarios where Ben is just living his life and then whoever he's talking to turns out to be Pennywise.
You know what I also found funny was when Ben was in the car and that a balloon came up with computer-typed font on the balloon saying, "Turn back now." Just so formal, Pennywise.
Well,
he didn't write on the balloon.
Pennywise has really, maybe he just has really neat handwriting, you know?
Incredibly neat. He's like an artist.
My question is, why didn't they just get normal balloons and then write it on by hand? Because I feel like it would be cheaper than buying special balloons.
Yeah, exactly. But it would have been creepier as well because, oh my god, Pennywise wrote that. No, now we just imagine Pennywise on an old Commodore computer, because it was the 80s, typing away, "Turn back now," putting a friggin' balloon on in his printer, printing it off, and then blowing it up. Which I do love, to be honest, because that's a hilarious image. But it doesn't make any sense.
It really doesn't. It really does not. All of the things that he does, all of the things that Pennywise does, you can just imagine all of the work he's putting into it. Like him carefully applying his makeup to sneak into Ben's room and then trick him into a makeout session. I mean, I don't know. You want this guy to be scary, but they're not doing it.
I know, and it's like, what does that add to his plan? Does he just want to snog John Ritter?
I mean, I think it's supposed to be sinister that he can be any one of them, and it's supposed to be who's going to be Pennywise next kind of thing, but it's not really sinister, you know? It's just ridiculous.
No, it's just you don't feel scared for him. You just feel slightly embarrassed that he kissed Tim Curry. That's what you really do.
Slightly embarrassed or slightly jealous?
Depends if it's Pennywise or Tim Curry.
I mean, okay, beyond that, though, their relationship was not very well established. I mean, they kind of had a very interesting relationship both as kids and as adults, where Bev was kind of like going out with everybody in the group, which is very weird, kind of a unique thing. I don't mind it too much just because it's a different way to do a group of friends, I guess. And they didn't include the like really weird parts, the really weird sexual parts. But when they introduce her to the group as an adult, she passes out and then she wakes up and then she kisses like most of the group. So that doesn't really make her romantic connection with Ben that special, because she has that connection with everybody.
Yeah. And their relationship is entirely founded on that one poem that Ben wrote as a kid. That is their relationship.
And honestly, that poem wasn't even that impressive. I could write better than that.
No. It was really short and straight to the point. So what's next on your scroll of notes?
I just can't get over how there was no repercussions from them leaving a dead body in their own hotel rooms. And they had their credit card information, because when they were running out of the hotel, they're just like, just send the bill to me. And their DNA would have been all over them. And the dead body was Henry Bowers, who everybody knows bullied them a lot when they were kids.
Yeah. It's like they don't really have a plan. I mean, like, even some of them decide, I'll just stay in Derry. You do know that you're now a suspect for a murder.
Oh, their whole plan to kill the spider. The worst plan I have ever seen in my entire life. First of all, they have these special silver earrings. I'm like, you guys are adults. You don't need these silver earrings. You could go to the store and you could buy as much silver as you want, or as you can afford. But they only bring these 2 silver earrings. I'm like, God damn it. If you're going to kill a monster and you know that the thing that kills it is silver, you go to the store, you buy as much silver as you can carry, and you bring it down there and you throw it on the monster. It's not that hard.
Or you load a machine gun full of silver. Doesn't one of the characters even say, hey, we should have bought a machine gun?
Yeah, they're like, oh, we should, let's bring a gun. And they go, they don't bring a gun. They bring flashlights and they bring 2 earrings and a slingshot. Yeah. I'm like, well, I'm glad you remembered the slingshot.
I'm all for the series thematic motif of nostalgia, but there's a line where it just starts to become silly and makes the characters look dumb.
Yes, the worst plan to go get him I've ever seen. And also, if they had done that and they were getting silver and they're like, okay, we have the map of the sewer, we're gonna go down, we're gonna shoot them full of silver, and we're gonna protect our town, and they had like a montage of them suiting up and buying the silver and then marching down there, and it wasn't just them like complaining and being like, I don't want to do this, let's bring our little slingshot. It weakens the whole moment. I'm like, I thought this was supposed to be the climax of your whole film.
That's something else that annoyed me. Richie grew up to be such an annoying, whiny prick. And like, he was played by Seth Green in part 1. And so he's going to be very likable and charming. So then when he grows up, it's like, I'll forget that. We'll just make him a prat. I
feel like they gave both versions of him a very similar kind of script, but the child actor just played it so much more charming, and the adult actor just...
He did, yeah.
He made him irritating.
Yeah, I do think it's the actor. Because he shouts so much. He shouts half of his lines.
Yeah.
And he just sounds so irritating. And
he's supposed to be, because the other characters say things like, oh, Richie, you're shouting, but I just...
That doesn't make him any less annoying, though.
he didn't play it very charismatic.
No, and he's not even a good comedian.
And the next thing you know, I'm feeling my way to the toilet. I mean, how much power power does the electric company have? Huh? How much power does the electric company have? Remember Godzilla? I mean, the planes couldn't stop him. The atom bomb couldn't stop him. Hell, Nancy Reagan couldn't stop him. But you get him in front of one high power line. Look, the creature is attacking the city.
I'm not saying that Richie as a child had potential to be a hilarious stand-up, but at least if he's made this his profession and he's become mainstream, can he at least give him some, funny material?
Yeah, and he's supposed to have this very deep connection with Eddie. And they kind of don't really focus on it very much, so it doesn't seem very deep. But at the end, with his happy ending, it's like, oh, he gets a comedy partner who looks like Eddie. I'm like, okay, that's nice.
Yay.
I mean, they never talked to each other when they were adults, and all of their dialogue with each other when they were kids was just them arguing about his nicknames.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Deep connection there, I guess.
That's a motif of the film. Just make them yell at each other and sum it up as, isn't it sweet?
Okay, when the group finally makes it back into the sewer and they're going after Pennywise, the whole thing just goes down. They do everything that they can to make all of their actions in the sewer be infuriating. First of all, Bill's idiot purse reaction when he discovers the purse. I'm like, Bill, you goddamn idiot. What makes you think that seeing this purse, Pennywise can obviously make visions and stuff. Stuff that's not really there. He knows this, but he sees this purse. He's like, oh, Audra must be down here. He runs off by himself into the darkness like, Audra! And then he sits on the floor and he weeps in a little ball.
Yes.
Bill, you idiot! You're supposed to be the leader of this group. You're the one who brought everybody together with your bravery and heroism. And here you are, crying on the floor. And
then, 5 minutes later, he does the exact same thing again. It's like, guys, we've got to be resilient. We cannot believe in his illusions. Oh my God, Georgie! What is wrong with you, Bill?
He is the only one who wanted to go down there. And as soon as he gets down there, he ruins everything and he runs off by himself. If you are going after a monster and you're in its lair, you do not scream and run off by yourself into the darkness. Idiot. He's supposed to be a horror writer. He should know this kind of stuff.
Yes! Right, anything else on your scroll?
The spider looks fake as shit. I know that the effects, this came out 1990.
Yes, it did, yeah.
And I know a lot of people really are very nostalgic for practical effects. But you're supposed to be scared of the monster. This is what they're building up to. And it's a fake as shit looking stop motion spider.
With some puppetry thrown in as well.
Yeah. I wasn't scared. I was not scared, and you could tell that they green screened them into this cavern with this fake spider.
And they didn't even show Pennywise, at least transforming into the spider to have, a big reveal. It's just oh, that's Pennywise.
And when they
that's a spider.
they have the characters next to the spider, it's not even that big. It's big for a spider, but, the Harry Potter spiders were bigger than that.
Yeah. I mean, you know what would be a really cool twist is if, at least it was a clown spider.
The clown spider. It would
at least be unique.
Wrong.
That could be at least unique and surprising, and not it's
you know
a spider.
What would be really scary, unique, and surprising? They kill the spider, and then they end the film at Ben and Bev's wedding. And they're doing their vows, and then they kiss, and then Bev turns into Pennywise at their wedding. And you find out that Pennywise was never defeated. And he turns to the camera, he winks, and it zooms in, and he's like, "That's all, folks," and that's the end of the movie.
Yes, I want that cut. That's perfect.
I mean, it would
That's better than a
explain why the
spider.
spider looks so shitty. If it was just a vision that Pennywise made to get them, to trick them into stop hunting him down.
Yeah, true.
I'm just throwing out some ideas here.
No, here's a twist. All along, it's been Tim Curry himself. He just wipes off the makeup. He's like, hello, it's me all this time. I've been eating children. I want that cut as well.
Break the fourth wall right there. Break the fourth wall.
Yes.
Freak everybody out.
Oh, yes, I want that version. We've got the technology, we can change it.
Well, maybe that's what they're gonna do in the new part 2 of the It movie. I really hope that the part 2 of the It movie, they fix some of this stuff. Like, at least I hope they make the spider not look like shit.
Yes, definitely, yeah. That's another thing I will give part 2, not to its own credit, but when I was watching, I was thinking, okay, so this is where the It remake sequel is going to go. It at least made me think, okay, let's see what the foundation is, what the template is. Let's see where the franchise goes. It's not really going to have much competition, but still, it's interesting to see where that will go, because I've not read the book, so that was an experience for me that slightly sort of compensated for all the boring soap opera drama.
Well, if part 2 of the TV series is faithful to the book, I don't think anybody would mind a ton if they just tweaked it to make it less terrible.
Yeah.
Because if this is what the book does, then the book throws out all of the rules too. So I for one would be okay if they changed it to make it a little bit more consistent with part 1.
Definitely, absolutely, yeah. Okay, so is there anything else on your scroll?
They add in this concept of the dead lights. Everything surrounding the dead lights is very confusing to me. First of all, Stanley, they say that he doesn't really believe in it until he sees the dead lights. But we see him start to believe it when he looks into the book and he sees Tim Curry as Pennywise popping out and like sticking his hand out of the book, and he's like, do you get it? And he's like, yeah, okay, is that what you want? I'm like, I thought we already saw the part where he starts believing in Pennywise. But they added in part 2 that it's different. I'm confused. Does he believe or not? I don't know. He looks into the dead lights.
Indecisive writing!
I don't know where the part where Stanley gets ambushed by Pennywise is supposed to happen in terms of the timeline. Because it would make sense that it happened before the part with the book and then the Bill's heroic speech and he gets them all together and then they start their plan to get Pennywise. But if it happened before, then why was Stanley like, it's not possible when they were opening the book for the first time? So it has to have happened after. But either way, it doesn't seem very graceful in the timeline.
No. Everything's very sketchy with with part 2.
The spider's dead lights. Now, there are many times when characters look into the dead lights, and whether or not they actually get transfixed by the dead lights seems to depend on whether or not the writers want them to be.
Yes, I noticed that too, yeah.
Because the 3 initial people who look into the dead lights, they're transfixed. But then Bev looks straight into the dead lights when she's aiming at him, and nothing happens to her. And Ed's looking into the dead lights too, and nothing happens to him except for some reason he dies from being picked up and then set down again. Why does he die? I don't know.
I do know that he covers his face, and I do know that Bev looks away when she's aiming the second time.
But she looks straight into the dead lights when she's aiming.
Yeah.
She looks away, but if you can look and then look away and have nothing happen, why don't the 3 idiots who look into the deadlights at the beginning, when they first encounter the spider, why do they get stuck in the deadlights?
Well, to be fair, one of them is Bill.
Okay, one of them is Bill, but the other people should have known better. Ben and Richie, they should have known better. And they're just like, oh, Bill will save you by running down and looking straight into the deadlights. Jesus Christ.
Next on the scroll.
And then also, when Bev hits the deadlights with the silver, and they have that really weird effect where it's like a light blowing out that they screened into his deadlight tummy, Tim Curry's deadlight tummy, the deadlights fix themselves really fast.
Yeah.
They fix themselves, well, Ed dies for no reason, and that only takes like a couple minutes. And then they go after the spider. The deadlights are already fixed, and they all look into them, but they're not transfixed because they just march right up to him. They just push him over and they punch him to death. And I was like, this is how you take down the spider? You could have just gone over to him, pushed him over, and punched him to death at any time. Any time. They could have just, they go over, they're actually taller than the spider, and they just push him over, and they just punch him, and he dies. I mean, it's quite a primal scene to have these adults crouched over this dead spider and like ripping out its heart and holding it up in the shadows and stuff. But they could have just gone over and pushed him over and punched him to death at any time.
But, well, he's sort of been weakened, hasn't he, in the previous scene? I'm not too sure. Was he?
Well, in the previous scene, they shoot him with the silver and his deadlights go out, and then he crawls away. But when they find him again, his deadlights are back on, so it seems like he's healed himself pretty fast.
Right, I see.
And the second time, when they go and they push him over, they're all right next to his deadlights. They're all staring at him when they just start punching the deadlights, and nothing happens to them as they're staring into the deadlights and punching them.
Yeah.
These are the deadlights that made Henry Bowers crazy and has kept him in an insane asylum for the past 30 years.
Consistency, what's that?
I guess the message of the story is if you are up against a very scary supernatural being who can move stuff around and make visions and has shark teeth and these deadlights that make you crazy, you just punch the deadlights. Just punch him. I mean, he seems really strong and magic and he can make blood and shit, but you just punch him and it'll work. You just go over, you just roll him over on his little deadlight tummy and you just punch him. And that was the climax of the movie, and they were not punished at all for going into the cave and not bringing anything except for a slingshot and some earrings, and that was it.
Because they had the power of punching.
The power of punching and friendship.
That's a great My Little Pony subtitle. The magic of punching and friendship.
And then after that, Ed stays dead. I'm just disappointed that he died in the first place because there's no reason that he should have died. He wasn't even injured. The spider just picked him up and then put him back down, and he was fine. He should have been fine. He wasn't even bleeding. You didn't even see the spider stabbing him or anything. It was just holding him in its little hands. He stays dead. There's no repercussions to them about him being dead, even though we've been shown that he has a very clingy mom. The clingy mom never comes back. They never address her reaction after she finds out that her son has died. Everyone kind of just forgets, and the whole fallout that should happen from something like that is just really glossed over very quickly. And then there is the very ridiculous ending with Bill and Audra. I was hoping Audra would be dead, honestly. They find her body like webbed up against the wall, and I'm like, oh good, she's dead. Well, at least now Bill will have an excuse for being a crazy idiot. But no, she's fine. She comes down. I don't know where all of the bodies and stuff came from in its cave if it doesn't leave any bodies. So I guess the final answer they settled on is that it does not leave any bodies. And then she's crazy because she looks into the deadlights, and the writers decided that this was the time that it would make you crazy to look into the deadlights. And then Bill is like, I'm gonna cure you by putting you on this bike, and then we're gonna bike faster than the madness, and we're gonna outrun the madness on this bike. First of all, when he decides to put her on the bike, they are about to get into a cab. Are you telling me that their bike is going faster than a car? Because if you just have to outrun the crazy, why don't you just get yourself on a plane and start going really fast? Why don't we just start loading all crazy people onto planes and start sending them really fast? Apparently, going real fast cures mental illness, so,
We've just solved the complete epidemic.
If the solution that you offer to the deadlights is going fast, why would the thing that you use be a bike? That is like the slowest shit that you could do, besides just throwing Audra over your back and running as fast as you can.
And the thing is, if they're seeing it as a good alternative to the taxi because they think, oh, we don't want the taxi driver to put people in danger, well, they still cause danger when they're on the bike. So it's
why not
really
just load
an
her to
excuse.
the taxi, take her on the freeway? Are you telling me that he's biking faster than 70 miles per hour? I mean, he's going down a hill, but Jesus Christ.
And it's all done in the most melodramatic and soppy way, and then it ends.
And then she's cured. I'm like, I don't want her to be cured. They have not built up this relationship for me. They have not made me want them to be together, because all of the stuff that they've shown has been them arguing and then Bill being an idiot because he finds her purse, and then he's like, no. That's that. I found a lot of things that I didn't appreciate as much in the second one, but at the same time, I am glad that I watched the second part with the first part, because after just watching the first part, I was like, oh man, the second part is going to be great. It wasn't, but it let me, at least I knew how the story ended, you know? And,
yeah. It was conclusive enough.
I just don't know what happened with part 2.
Okay, so final conclusion?
I would say that I really liked it, despite the fact that I've been complaining about it for the past hour or so. I really liked it. I really recommend part 1, and I do recommend that you watch part 2 as well. Maybe just watch part 2 while you're doing something else, cleaning, listening to music, because it's going to be a little disappointing, probably. Unless you're really scared of balloons, I guess.
Yeah, whoa.
I would still give the overall experience that I had, an 8 out of 10 though, just because the first part, I really liked the first part. I watched that part a couple of times.
Yeah. Plus, Tim Curry is in both parts, so kind of compensates for a lot.
He is in good form in the second part as well.
Yeah.
He's very entertaining in the second part, except for when he's the spider, but he's only the spider at the parts where he's supposed to be scary, I guess.
For me, part 1 was a charming coming-of-age story with relatable nostalgia and surprisingly creepy moments, while part 2 lost everything that I loved about part 1 and just became a boring soap drama with confusing ideas that baffle me. I understand that some people, mainly those who grew up with this miniseries as kids, found Tim Curry's Pennywise to be creepy because he pulls off being a children's party clown really well, and it's that authenticity that scared audiences when it's revealed that he's really a monster. However, I personally didn't find him to be creepy at all. He's not that intimidating because he barely does anything except mug at the camera, and Tim Curry plays him in such a silly, over-the-top way that it's hard for me to see him as a serious, legit threat. I find him more funny than scary. I'll give the whole It miniseries a rating of 7 out of 10. I've been Jabariki, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Church of Tim Curry.
And I've been Viva Becker. Bye!